Isn't it? Okay. Sorry, Podbean listeners. I hope you're back with me. It wasn't recording my show, so I had to log back into Podbean and then re-record. So, boy, oh boy, technology! I swear. Sorry, guys. I am talking about the first article that is on blog number 430. I just lost it. I'm having technology problems today. Blog number 34. Okay. Um, and I like this story. And actually, Brittany Murphy Monjack, when she passed away in 2009, I remember that because I used to watch her on Legally Blonde. I love Reese Witherspoon. I wrote that to you guys in the blog. And so when she passed away, I was like, wow, kind of sad about it because we were really young. I think she was actually a year older than I am. So pretty young to pass away. As I read about her story back then, I didn't remember reading anything about, her home being haunted. So when I wrote this blog back in October, October is a month where a lot of ghost stories come out. My husband gave me an article and he said, "Hey, this might be something that you write on your blog." Because apparently, her house was haunted when she lived in it. And I'm like, what? You have got to be kidding me. So I'm reading the article and I was like, whoa, this is interesting. Some of the things that were talked about in the article was that she was so afraid, for example, in the house that she would not go back to the house. So I think her husband had tried a couple times to get her to come back into the home, but she wouldn't. And so they actually bought that house from Britney Spears. I don't know if you guys have read about this, but Britney Spears actually left that home because of its disturbances. So the Monjacks bought the home from Britney Spears. Britney Spears also reported to her friends and family that the house had disturbances and she would not go back. So the Monjacks actually bought this home from Britney Spears, and the Monjacks also reported disturbances. You guys should take a look at that house. It is gorgeous over in LA. And so the husband, who is now deceased, unfortunately, so both Monjacks, they're both deceased, he died within the home as well. And it's reported that prior to his death, he had a lot of tactile hallucinations. You guys know what tactile hallucinations are? Those are touch, when people touch you or you feel like something's touching you. So they say he died in the home the same way she did, but prior to his death, he was having tactile hallucinations. And I talked about tactile hallucinations, some of these kids feeling like something is touching them. If you haven't read that, please read that. So sometimes, people say that spouses die of a broken heart. So a lot of the reports were saying that he was just really brokenhearted over his wife's death, but he did acknowledge that their house was disturbed. Yeah. You should read it. Read about that. I put the link on my website so you can access it. But lots of disturbances in that house. I actually took the time, I told you guys I used to sell real estate. So I actually took the time to look into the house, inside of it, and on the outside. And it's really, those LA celebrity homes. It's nice. So I was thinking maybe they should just tear it down and do a seance or something. I don't know, because you've had two disturbances. And actually, I think, okay, never mind. I was going to say, did they tear that house down? I read something about it. Okay, don't quote me on that, but check it out when you get a chance. So let's talk about my man Marilyn Manson. I know he didn't have the best reputation now. I know he didn't have it back in October either. But his story was on Celebrity Ghost Stories. And for me, it was often the most unforgettable ghost story. One of the things that I always paraphrase that Marilyn Manson said was that when you open the door to things you don't know about, sometimes those things never go away. And he has experienced that. And one of the things that he said that because it's basically, if you don't know what you're doing, sometimes you can unleash things that just never go away. They remain with you. So when you get a chance, check it out. One of the things that he did, first of all, this was on Lifetime Movie Network, Celebrity Ghost Stories. And you can actually look this stuff up on YouTube. One of the things that he and his friend did, I believe, is that they were playing with Ouija boards. And they got into this, I think he was trying to describe it as this spiritual realm. And they were kind of tapping into some dark things. And so, you know, one of the things that happened to him is that he believes. So, you know what he looks like, you know what he does, you know the kind of music, you know some of the things that he's accused of right now. I think he always felt like because when he was a kid, he grew up in a Christian household. And I think he went to Christian schools. And so when he tapped into these things, I think he believes that he unleashed a demon that stays with him, which is why he makes some of the choices that he does, you know, for his music and for his style of dress and those kind of things. It's just very dark if you look at Marilyn Manson. So I think that's why he said when you tap into things you don't understand, sometimes they never go away. To him, the darkness that he unleashed never went away. So I've always remembered that. And actually, I can still picture him talking about his story on Lifetime Movie Network. So he has an interesting one, and I added him because when I hear about kids talking about really dark things too, sometimes I will defer them to his story because his story makes a lot of sense with regard to the things that he learned from tapping into darkness. Interesting, right? All right. Don't go chasing waterfalls. Y'all know that song, right? Yep, TLC. Miss T-Boz herself. She has a ghost story. She has a ghost story, if you did not know. Everybody used to like TLC. Some of you weren't old enough to sing some of their songs, but I am because T Breezy is about my age. She's about a year older than me. And she had a ghost story on The Haunting. So this is another show that I used to watch. And I remember I remember when it came out and I was sitting there going, "Oh my God, T-Boz has a ghost story. What about T-Boz? What about T-Boz? What happened to her?" Well, there was a mystery behind it and I thought it was really, really scary. It was so scary that she wound up moving. So, what they did was they went behind the scenes with T-Boz to uncover some of the mystery behind the paranormal activity that she was experiencing in her condo in California. And so I did not put a lot of details about her experience on purpose in the blog because when you get curious, I'd like for you to watch that episode and be the judge yourself. I thought it was scary. I thought she had one of the more scary episodes. She was so scared that she moved out of that condo with her daughter. Only went back when she had some paranormal investigators with her, and that was a while after she had moved. So this was a really good story. So when you get a chance, make sure you check out, that episode of The Haunting. I don't know if you guys watch that kind of stuff. Like for me, I was watching it because I was working with so many kids who can see ghosts. So for me, watching that stuff was learning. It was correlating their experiences with some of the experiences that I had personally when I was working with these kids that I saw in the buildings where I worked. And I was trying to see if some of their experiences were very similar to some of the kids that I worked with. And actually, some of the experiences that T Boss had were similar to some of the experiences that I had when I was in building two. So I saw a lot of correlations and I thought, whoa, this is this is heavy, T-Boz. Oh man. Yeah, so check it out. And The Haunting, I don't know if it still comes on TV, but if you like a good mystery and also like a good ghost story on top of different strategies that professionals used in order to either cleanse these individuals from these entities or cleanse the homes, The Haunting is actually a good show. It's a good show. And so I used to watch it faithfully when I was home with my kids. And I mean, I actually had to stop watching it because then I was getting paranoid. Like, oh my God, what's that? What's that? Who's that? What's that? And what's that noise? Oh my God. And I was like, okay, I'm watching too much of The Haunting and I have to stop. But what it did do was it validated some of the things that I've experienced with children because there were kids in this show too who could see ghosts. So I always tell you this stuff is not made up. And these producers of movies who create stuff like The Shining and all that, Stephen King, yeah, they all can see ghosts, just so you know. There's too much of a correlation. So funny. All right, Miss Halle Berry. Let's talk about Miss Halle Berry. All right. So one of the movies other than The Exorcist, I had to think of it, that I absolutely cannot watch, will not watch it, won't entertain watching it is Gothica. Have you guys seen Gothica? It is really freaking scary to me. Anytime there's a story like Gothica that involves something psychiatric, it will replay itself in my head over and over and over again. And it was scary to me. You can't make me watch Gothica to this day. There's another movie, a third one, Beloved. That's another movie that I will not watch. Beloved. If you have not seen Beloved, it is really good. But boy, oh boy, Dr. Lisa will not watch that. So I will not watch Gothica and I will not watch The Exorcist. You definitely couldn't pay me any money to watch The Exorcist. You might be able to pay me to watch Gothica, not The Exorcist. It's too real to me. So Halle Berry in Gothica played Dr. Miranda Gray. To me, good horror movies will have some type of psychiatrist or psychologist in them. I just don't know why. When you read about her experiences with ghosts, it's not with Gothica. It is actually with Introducing Dorothy Dandridge, which was also a phenomenal movie. If you have not seen Introducing Dorothy Dandridge, she did a phenomenal job. And what's really scary is that she almost looks like Dorothy Dandridge. Like they look like they can be sisters. She's a carbon copy of Dorothy Dandridge. And so I put a picture of Halle Berry next to Dorothy Dandridge, and they look so much alike that it's scary. Beautiful women. Um, so later on, after introducing Dorothy Dandridge came out, um, she talked about her paranormal experiences in this film. She talked about Dorothy Dandridge being a quote twin flame of hers. She put on a dress of Dorothy Dandridge is, and she had a paranormal experience while she was in the dress with the ghost of Dorothy Dandridge, which is how she describes it. So it is a story that she started to tell years later after the movie, and she was um, fully aware of the paranormal activity. She was fully aware of it. And she felt as if, it was truly meant for her to play Dorothy Dandridge. And I think when she was getting these paranormal experiences, it was confirmation for her that she was doing the right thing. She felt like that was actually Dorothy Dandridge. Well, I can't imagine how she felt, like putting on that dress and she could fit it perfectly. She looked just like her. And then she was having paranormal experiences while all of this was going on. I think that's pretty scary, personally. Now, here's another story from another celebrity that correlated with one of my blogs. This one is actually still in Elle magazine, and it's about Miley Cyrus. Yes, Miley Cyrus had an experience with a little ghost boy. Now, some of the celebrities that I talk about, I didn't know that they titled some of their experiences the same as some of the titles I had in my blog. For example, Miley Cyrus called this boy the Ghost Boy. I have a blog called The Little Ghost Boy. Just a coincidence. Now, she and her younger sister had a lot of experiences with this little ghost boy. A lot of them. And it was haunting their family home. So she was dreaming about him, and she said, quote, that she was terrified. And she was a lot younger, because remember, she's still young now, so she was a lot younger. And her sister, she's older than her sister. And so it is so similar to some of the children that I've worked with who can see ghosts, who will not only see these entities, but they will also dream about them. Miley Cyrus had the same experience. She would dream about them. And so, she said that this was really scary for her. And it's also very scary for the children that I work with. The little boy I was telling you about before we started the blog was telling me that he stayed under the covers but could see. And he said, I think that it saw me looking at it, but I'm not sure. But I stayed under the covers because that was scary. It just clearly walked across the room. So I always say, imagine being in the shoes of these kids. So imagine how Miley Cyrus felt when this was happening. And it would appear to Miley and her sister. So when have the opportunity. I made it easy. Miley's story I found in Elle magazine in the UK. So I put the dates and, the photos up so you can actually see for yourself. Each of these stories were unforgettable to me. A lot of them correlated to some of the things that I've talked about with nebulous children. If you ever question whether or not some of these stories are true, you can Google these things and see for yourself. all of my stories about what these kids did and what they said and what they talked about. For example, the most recent story I have, they're all true. Every last one of them. So here's something that I found out, and it's because people told me, because I wouldn't know. I was told that when some people have Googled kids can see ghosts, there's a song that comes up by Kanye West and Kid Cudi, I guess that, or Cudi maybe, called Kids See Ghosts from 2018. And you just don't make this stuff up. You just don't. You know, there are people who will pretend to see ghosts. I get that, especially around Halloween. But I do think that there's something to it. There's some connection. Works for me that they come up when you Google kids see ghosts, but I don't think that people make this stuff up. I think, why would you even create a song that says kids see ghosts? Just why would you do that? You know. And Kanye is acting a little bit different right now, so something is definitely going on. But I do think that you should look at the interpretation of that song. I actually watched a video too, and when I saw it, I thought and read the lyrics, I said either one of them or both of them can actually see ghosts. It's way too similar to the stories that I've heard from children. So on the blog, I also put some fun facts on there. Understand that these are fun facts that I didn't know, with the exception of Halle Berry, that I had in common with these individuals. So I just drew these individuals based upon what I saw online when you Google celebrity ghost stories. And one of the things that I found was that 3 of these celebrities are from the Cleveland, Ohio area. And I thought, really? That's interesting. So I have something in common with each of the celebrities that I mentioned, with the exception of Brittany Murphy. Okay. I thought that was a little bit eerie. And I actually met Miley Cyrus's dad many, many, many years ago. As a matter of fact, her mother was pregnant with her when I met Billy Ray Cyrus, a really, really nice man back in the day when I met him. So I thought that was, something pretty funny about all of them, because I was sitting back, I met T-Boz more than once. And so when I was sitting back reading the blog, I was like, wait a minute, I have something in common with all of them except Brittany Murphy. Yeah. So we can actually move to the next blog, which is haunted houses. I actually have a lot to say about haunted houses. A lot. So I'm only going to do a little bit today, and then we can finish talking about it next week. But there are some cartoons that we watch, and I actually, as an adult now, with all of the experiences that I've had in psychology, but also with regard to the things that I've heard kids say, I can look sometimes at different TV shows and different cartoons and go, yep, that's what the kids tell me. Wow, the kids have told me that too. Huh, the kids were not lying about this. Somebody wrote about this in the show. Or I remember I was watching a show called Evil, for example. And there was an episode, and I could still see it, which is why I'm staring at my computer. There was an episode where the little boy has said something to the effect of, and this is a paraphrase, something like, the ghost made me do it. The ghost made me want to hurt somebody. And this, I don't want to give it away in case you haven't seen it, but this is when the little boy tried to harm his sister. And examples like that, where I was like, yes, kids have told me that they will whisper in their ears and tell them to do hurtful or harmful things. And some of the kids will do it and others will try to resist. So not coincidences, but similarities, if you will, such as that will make me go, oh, okay. So for Halloween, I finally was able to get my son to watch Monster House. I'm pretty sure some of you are familiar with Monster House, especially if you're a parent. And I like to watch Monster House every year with my kids. And so as I was watching Monster House, and if you haven't seen it, again, I don't want to give it away, but watching how curious the kids are about a house that's haunted. It reminded me of many nebulous children who tiptoe into different parts of the house because they're afraid, because they've seen a ghost in the kitchen or they've seen a ghost in the basement. And so when I watch Monster House every October for Halloween, it also makes me realize how many of you like ghost stories, and some of you have talked to me about your homes being haunted. So remember, these October ghost stories happened back in October. And so somebody back then had sent me an email and started talking about how, their house was haunted. So that particular week, I watched Monster House and I said, you know what, I should do a whole blog on haunted houses because I heard about them so much. So when you read this blog, position your mind as thinking about how these little kiddos feel. For example, the little boy earlier who saw a ghost walk across the room, how they feel. Some of you have told me that you feel like you have disturbances in your homes. So the majority of us cannot see ghosts. But for those of us who can, in particular children, it can be fascinating for them, but it can also be scary. So a lot of the kids have told me a response to all of you. There are some of you who will ask me, how come I can't see ghosts? I would really like to see ghosts. How come ghosts won't come to me? And every single child that I speak to or have spoken to who can see ghosts always says, make sure you say they do not want to see ghosts. We see ghosts all the time. It is not something that you want to see. The spiritual world or paranormal activity is not always friendly unless you call upon God's angels to protect you. Then you can see that you are protected, which gives them a self-esteem boost too, because they're feeling stronger and feeling better about what they can do. But every child says that. When I sold real estate, one of the common questions I would get in reference to haunted houses is my home haunted? Almost, or is this home haunted? I'm sorry. And I almost, I have to tell you, almost every buyer would say, I want a new house, brand new, because I don't want to deal with any I remember there was one lady who was adamant about having a brand new house. I need to build it because I don't want any ghosts in my house. And and I still remember that day. It was a hot day in St. Louis. And I wanted to tell her, sweetheart, that will not prevent a ghost from coming into your house. It's a common misconception that older homes are haunted. My husband is like that. When we were looking for a house, he would be like telling people, I don't want my wife to find us an old house. Old houses are haunted. You go past one of those old Victorian homes, the real big old Victorians, and I actually like the old Victorians. They're very beautiful. My husband will go, I don't want that house. It just looks like it's haunted. And I'm like, what? What does that mean? And so this lady was adamant about that. And I used to always think to myself, if we could all actually see ghosts, we would probably, I don't know, we would never buy a house because the kids have said to me that paranormal activity is always around us. We just don't see it. So when they open their eyes and look, what do they see? They see ghosts all the time. Somebody personal to me sees ghosts and can see them all the time, but just blocks it out. Over the years, has learned to block it out. And like, yeah, the kids are right. Ghosts are always there. So whether you have a new house or an old house, those of us who can't see ghosts, we're just freaking protected from it, right? We're just protected. We just don't see it. Now, you're not supposed to tell your client that, I didn't know how to make sure there were no ghosts in the house she wanted to buy. And actually, they wound up buying a brand new house too, with lots of windows and lots of sunlight. And to her, that meant no ghosts. So I went with it. You're right. There are no ghosts in there, because what do I look like telling people? Yeah, I can go and do a ghost sweep of the house. It's an old Victorian, but I'm pretty sure there are no ghosts in it. Yeah, it doesn't work like that. So, there are people who say, how can I tell if my home is haunted? I just never knew how to answer that question, right? I don't know how you tell if your house is haunted if you can't see ghosts. So I didn't know how to answer that. I was like, I guess it's just a feeling. You have to go in the house and figure out if it feels that way to you. and there were so many buildings and homes that I would walk away from and just shake my head and giggle, because it would be so funny that that was the criterion for purchasing the house, whether it was haunted or not. Sometimes the individuals would be so terrified of ghosts being in the house that they wouldn't even step into the home at all, which was also challenging. And God forbid they step into the basement. Now, I didn't go into basements, and I'll tell you why. It depended on who I was showing the home to. I was just all about safety. So typically I would, if I was like showing a home to a man, I had security outside, but they would go down in the basement by themselves. The other reason I wouldn't go into the basement is because I don't like mice. And so it had nothing to do with ghosts. And if I had to go into the basement, once I felt safe, I would stomp so loudly because I was scared of mice. So it had nothing to do with ghosts. But there were people with me who would be very frightened of going into the basement. And I never recommend that you buy a house without exploring the entire house, including having an inspection. So some people were so scared of ghosts or the houses being haunted that they wouldn't go down in the basements at all. The dark would scare them. So I always say, but if we all could see ghosts, none of us would probably buy houses, period. Because according to the kids, not me, they're always around. So to answer that question, is my house haunted? Actually, a lady just told me last week, yes, everybody's house is haunted. They just don't disturb some of you. Now, that's not according to me. That's according to someone else. And again, kids have said yes. So what I want you to know is it doesn't matter about your home's age. If it's a brand new house, if it's an abandoned building. I've had kids tell me they would look at abandoned buildings with me and they would go, there's a dark angel in the building, right? But I couldn't see it. But the kids would say, I see it. It's sitting over there. Many people will not buy a home that's near a cemetery. You can. My mom always says dead people can't hurt you. Some people will have a response of, yeah, but their spirits can. If my mom is watching, I'm sure she's laughing, because she always say, Oh, what are you scared of dead people for? The dead can't hurt you. And I know some people who would say, yes, but ghosts can. You can buy a house next to a cemetery and you'll be just fine. Um, Now, I'm going to direct you to something on Google. And again, if you don't believe me, Google this stuff. There's a store in St. Louis. I guess I can say the name because it is public knowledge because it was in the news. Let me think about that for a minute. I actually don't know if I can say the name of the store, but it was in the news. I'll just tell you the story real quick before we go. There was some skeletons found as they were digging the foundation for a really big store in St. Louis. And come to find out, oh God, they built it on an ancient burial ground. Now, I've been in this store and didn't know all of that until I actually learned it from some of my students. Some of my graduate students told me. And this is a time when they start telling me, oh, that particular area is haunted. It's very haunted. You know, it was built on top of an ancient burial ground. You know, that's why there are so many hauntings in that area, blah, 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 blah. And so I didn't believe everything they were telling me. And so I went and Googled it, and that store came up. And I was like, oh my God, these students were right. This area is built on a burial ground, and this store, oh my God, it was in the news and it was in the paper. They found bones. They found bones, and they had to actually move the bones so that they can continue to build the store. But did they build the store? Yes, they did. Is the building haunted? I don't know. I didn't have any experiences when I was in the store. But now I'm curious to know if there have been any reported disturbances since they opened, but I don't know. But I'm just saying you can build a store next to a burial ground or a cemetery. It doesn't matter. You can build a home next to a senior citizens center. Kids will tell you it doesn't matter. The paranormal world exists. They're around us. They can see it. We just can't. I think it's fascinating. All right. So when it comes down to paranormal disturbances, you don't have to deal with it. It's the same thing I tell kids. I know plenty of adults who have learned to cope and rid and do what they need to do to get through this. So there's someone I know personally who I mentioned earlier who can see ghosts, been seeing ghosts for many, many years, and lives life knowing that they can see ghosts. What this person does is praise the ghosts away each and every time. I'm not dealing with this. Psh, if they see a ghost outside, they close blinds. I mean, it's as simple as that. And so there are a lot of different things that can be done, but sometimes they happen. And as you read through the blog, you will learn, if you read through it and really process some of the stuff that I'm saying, that I've had some of these experiences as well, vicariously through the children. But also, I had a couple on my own, when I was working for certain companies. So some of these things were actually unkind to children and very terrifying and frightening. Others were very safe. For example, when they saw God's angels around in vivo, real time, they would see them when we would pray together. So I hope you are enjoying the blog. And at that time, I said happy Halloween, but of course, we've had Christmas and stuff now. So we're far beyond that blog. But those are my experiences with celebrity ghost stories and also haunted houses. Next week, oh, this is one of my favorite topics. I talked about movies, in particular, doll babies. Yeah, lots of people want to talk about dolls. Last year, when I started the podcast and the blog, believe it or not, there were people who really wanted to talk about haunted dolls. What I didn't know until I wrote this blog is that there's actually a market for haunted dolls. Did you guys know that? Because I didn't. And there's a whole market for this. And I was like, wow. So that was something that I learned because I didn't know. So we are going to explore haunted doll babies next week through various movies such as Chucky. So thank you so much for joining me. I will catch up on my blog this week. You guys have a wonderful weekend. We are getting another snowstorm in Illinois starting tonight. So yay. And guess what? Friday is my 50th birthday. A big 5-0. So I made it to a half a century. I don't know how that sounds or how that feels, but we'll see on Friday. I just thank God I'm still alive to talk to all of you. All righty. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.